guys, we're back for another exciting episode of the Hashtag Wednesday Match Play, and I am pumped for today's guest for a couple of reasons. One, because we're talking about golf. I mean, that's kind of the point of the show, right? But this guy is a stud when it comes to social media and teaching. He's got partners out the wazoo. We'll talk about some of those in a little bit. And he followed me on Twitter recently, which was really cool because I've been following this guy for a long time. The name is synonymous with golf instruction. He's a top 40 under 40 with Golf Digest. And we just got a lot of stuff to talk about. And maybe before the end of the show, he can teach Tiger how to putt, but we'll talk about that in a little bit too. So I don't know. That's a challenge I'm not sure any teaching pro is willing to take on right now. But tonight's episode of the Hashtag Wednesday Match Play is presented by Eat Sleep Golf. This episode is also a part of the Golf Radio Network, a syndicated network of golf podcasts. So a lot of really cool podcasts joining that series. And Gabriel Aloisi has done a great job kind of getting all of those into one kind of funnel. So anywhere that you want to see this content, it's easy to obtain. Get it on YouTube every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., or you can get it via podcast on iTunes and Google Play. But whatever you do, if you're sitting at home, click the subscribe button down below. But do me one thing more than that. Click on the notifications button. Turn those notifications on. That way you don't even have to look for it. It comes right to your inbox every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. That way you get this content. You don't have to do anything more than open your inbox. So on tonight's episode, we're going to talk about golf instruction, a little bit of Tiger because, I mean, we have to because, you know, Tiger's kind of my man, right? So we have Travis Fulton from Travis Fulton Golf. He's in Jacksonville, and this is kind of cool. He's going back to the Hoosier State. He teaches a little bit at a club in Indiana, my homestead. So, Travis, welcome to the Hashtag Wednesday Match Play, man.
Hey, Ricky, thanks so much for having me. I'm a fan of the show. I've watched some of your episodes. It's nice to put a face to the name. I know we interact on social media, so thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Dude, absolutely. You're a logo on most social media, so I just have to watch your YouTube videos to see what you look like. But I appreciate that feedback, and it's really fun to have you on the show to kind of talk a little bit. A lot of stuff going on is the best way to put it. I mean, if you just go to your website and on the homepage, you can tell that you're a busy guy and you stay very focused on both teaching the game of golf and growing the game of golf. So let's just start with the logo. Now, that's kind of the foundation of any company, any brand. Your logo freaking rocks, by the way. It's so simple, but it's so powerful. So talk about the logo, who designed that, the colors. Just kind of give us the overview of the logo and then transition that into the brand of Travis Fulton Golf.
You know, I've got some good friends here in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, and they have an extensive background in that whole bit of things. And when I went on my own, I was working for the PGA Tour Academy for a long time, the director of instruction for them. And when I went on my own about 2.5 years ago, that's one of the first steps, of course, that you have to make. You know, you got to get a logo, right? You've got to become a brand. You're an entrepreneur officially, right? So we went to work on it. They did a terrific job, just with the whole brand campaign, the look and feel, trying to really, capture who I am and what the brand's going to be all about. So we had 2 or 3 different options there. We elected that one. The colors are absolutely the same colors with the Seahawks. As you can see, this is my cape. I don't know if you can see me right now, but
I was picking that up. You have the shirt on, you got the stuff on the
look here, so you can see. So this is the East Coast clink, Ricky. So we, on the West Coast and the Northwest, this is the loudest stadium. They call it CenturyLink, but for short, the clink. So I had to build it over here. This is my little sanctuary where I come to. It's my office. It's where I eat dinner. It's where my kids come in and mess everything up. And I don't know, can you hear that music right now? Actually,
I can.
Google, hold on one second, because I think we've inspired the Google Home. One second.
Yeah, man. This is fantastic because I assumed when I saw the logo that it was the Seahawks because my boss is a big fan of the Seahawks as well. So that's pretty fun.
I'm a big fan. I'm a little bit of a nut. We had a nice run there for years, and we're in a little bit of a rebuild mode. But anyway, back to the logo. The logo has I can't take credit for that. It's a good team here that put it together. I love it, and it really kind of got my brand and what we've been trying to do over the last couple of years off on the right foot.
So you have the 18 Birdies logo on your website. I was actually talking to them today, as a matter of fact, about getting them on the show later this season. Josh, who was a gentleman that used to work for them, was my point of contact. He's no longer with the brand, but I know that you work closely with the guys over at 18 Birdies. Tell us a little bit more about your partnership with those guys and kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, we just finished season 1 of the Stripe Show. I don't know if you got to catch any of that. That was a lot of fun to see really a kind of a vision and a dream of what I wanted a show to look like, kind of the next generation of an instruction show. And 18 Birdies really liked the idea when I met them about a year ago. And we went into a partnership and we executed the Stripe Show under the 18 Birdies brand. It was a great success. We did 25 episodes. We moved it all over the country. We had some great guests. And of course, the underlying theme of the show is instruction. And, a stripe show can mean so much in golf, right? It can mean that perfect impact. It can mean that perfect straight ball flight. So we're crazy about the name. We liked how it looked and feel. It's very it's laid back. It's casual, and it's approachable, and it's a lot of fun. The entertainment value is we feel like it's at an all-time high when it comes to an instruction-based show. So 18 Birdies is a great company. I mean, they've only been at it for 2.5 years. What they've accomplished in 1.5 million subscribers is just crazy. And they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for years to come in our space. And I'm just excited to be a part of it.
That's really cool. And to Stripe Show, hitting the middle of the fairway in the middle of the club face. But I also a lot of Troon facilities specifically will post these pictures on Instagram. You talk about Instagram before we went live of just fairways striped, just green on green on green. And I like to say, hashtag Stripe Show when I see those pictures. I say nothing more. It's just hashtag Stripe Show. So when you came out with the show, it was fantastic name. And not that I was upset that you didn't have, pictures of fairways, but still I get the point. Now, your tagline though is great information, right order. And I love that because it's so simple and it gets straight to the point of what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to give great information in the right order as it takes for a student to be able to take that information and use that to his or her advantage. So talk a little bit more about that tagline, where it came from, and what it means to you with your teachings.
Well, I think, I think in today's era of teaching, it's appropriate in that there's a lot of great information available that's out there. And I think that's a important first step. Obviously, in anything that you're doing, you want to get good information, right? You don't want to be dealing in bad info. I think as an industry, we continue to grow in what's really happening. We know that the science and the ability to measure things has helped that substantially. But, I think what's maybe kind of gotten lost a little bit is in the art of teaching is the actual order and the application that needs to take place. And as we know, the golf swing is in short game and putting, and there's just this whole game in itself, this whole holistic approach itself can be overwhelming at times. And I think, the order in how you apply things to a student is probably the most important aspect of it. So, I always try to pride myself on anything that we're doing, whether it's, the Stripe Show or it's a segment on Golf Channel or talking to Hank Haney on Sirius XM or talking to you right here, that, you want to try to give them good info, but understand your audience as far as, and putting things in the right order. Give it context and let them understand that you're feeding it to them in a very particular order and how you would like them to consume it, how you would like them to learn. And I really think that gets into the art of teaching. And that's something that I really try to pay close attention to, especially in an era where there's so much great information out there.
And to that point, there is a lot of information out there, and I can kind of relate that to me a little bit. So I had never taken golf lessons in my life. Got to Naples, started taking lessons with a guy, and basically wanted to quit golf. It got so bad that I was done. I hated the game because I didn't know if the ball was going left, right, or straight, and I had no idea why it was doing that. And I ended up being convinced basically to take lessons with Bernard Sheridan, who works with Impact Zone Golf here at Tiburon. He and I just literally hit it off like we were best buddies, and we spend as much time talking about life and anything non-related to golf while on the lesson tee as we do talking about what I'm doing on the lesson tee. And he just gets it, right? And I think that that's part of it, the information that he provides me, and he moves me an inch, and it changes my game by a milestone. And it's to that point, like the information being in the right order, it's struck a kind of a chord with me, because, you know, if somebody steps up and says, hey, move your foot this way, move your grip this way, and start swinging this way, it's like, wait a minute, pretty sure I know how to swing a golf club. Like, let's just figure out why I'm hitting it 5 yards right to left instead of straight, you know?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that ease of a tagline that you've created. And I can tell in what I've seen of your teachings is that you speak to students that way too. You're not trying to change everything from the ground up. You're trying to focus on what they have. And, you know, like you look like Jim Furyk, right?
Yeah.
Awful swing. He's obviously figured it out. I mean, the guy shot 58 and he's your Ryder Cup captain. Like, the guy's got it dialed in, right? But it's a terrible swing, so to speak, but it works. And you can't go into him and say, okay, stop doing that and stop doing this, do this instead of that. I mean, you just got to work with what you have, and you kind of get that. And that's Bernard. I don't know if you've ever seen his work, but he's a rock star. And I love the work that he and I have been doing together. So I can kind of relate those two. So I dig that tagline. Yeah. Now, Golf Digest, you're one of the top 40 under 40 instructors with them.
I'm over 40 now, so that's got to come down.
You don't look over 40 now. Take that logo off your website then, because I think some people might think that you're still under 40.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to remove that one now. I've been pushing it well past the deadline. But,
the top 40 under 50. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
When you were on that list, though, as the top 40 under 40, what did that mean to you as an instructor and being associated with such a great list of instructors?
You know, I've always been a huge fan of Golf Digest. I have a lot of really close friends that have worked for that company for a long time. And, you know, just looking at what they've meant to the industry and what they've put forth, and certainly have the challenges now from print, everything going from print to digital, and seeing, you know, the success that they're having in doing that. You know, it's a smart group. It's a well-established group. So it meant a lot to me, you know, when I made that list, which was, I think I made the list when I was 31, 32, somewhere in there, and was able to stay on the list until now. I just turned 41, unfortunately. But, you know, it's nice to get those, you know, kinds of things, you know, as you go along, to be recognized as, you know, one of the top young teachers that was, you know, moving along. So, you know, I'm a big fan of them. I continue to do work with them. In fact, I just did we just did their first ever junior golf digital series that will live in their all access subscription model. So it's really cool to see them doing more now in the junior space, and to kind of be a part of that as the first, you know, teacher in the digital space for the junior platform for them was a bit honored. But I've been a big fan of Golf Digest. I was reading it when I was, you know, 12 years old, 13 years old, you know, growing up in the game, and then to see myself in the magazine and become friends with all these really talented people has been really cool.
So a little trivia about me. I'm an organized hoarder, as I like to say. Mm-hmm. I have subscribed to Golf Digest probably since about 12 years old, and I've never thrown away an issue. I have boxes and boxes. Even to this day, I read it on my iPad, but I have right here on my desk, I've got stacks of the last 4 or 5 issues. And what's cool about it is that as I go along, and the older I get, and the more of these shows that I do where I get guys like Brandon Stooksbury is a good friend of mine. And I don't know if you know Brandon. He's based out of a club in Macon, Georgia. He used to be at TPC Las Vegas at PGA Tour Academy. And he
worked for me.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Cheers. Yeah, I know Stooks very well. Yep.
That's awesome. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So, funny story, total side to what I was saying. I actually, we evacuated the Hurricane Irma here about a year ago this week almost. We evacuated, and he took us in for a few days. So Stooks is a very, very good close friend of mine, and just a dear friend. He's been on the show twice. He may, when he releases his next book, he will be the first ever guest on this show 3 times for 3 totally different things. So that's pretty exciting. But that's cool. I'll make sure I text him when we're done and be like, hey, guess, make sure you watch the show in a couple of weeks. But, you know, I flipped through this magazine and I see guys and girls that I know, and I'm like, hey, I know her. Hey, I know him. Hey, I know him. And that's cool, right? And I'm not a pro. I'm not a teacher. I'm not PGA. I'm a part of the CMAA program, right? But it's really neat to be able to flip through such a major, well-known, well-established publication that is like, I mean, there's nothing bigger than Golf Digest in my book. I mean, yeah, there's Golf Week, there's Golf Magazine, there's all those others, but Golf Digest is kind of the bar. And that's neat that you've been involved with them for so long and you've been in the magazine. And to your point, I mean, you know people that are in it because, my God, you're in it. So,
yeah.
So you've got a ton of followers on Twitter. You're super active and super popular on YouTube. What's kind of been your finger on the pulse, especially in an instruction perspective when there's so much content? Go to youtube.com and type in how to not hook the ball, and you'll find 1,000 videos. What's kind of been your secret sauce for that, and what's your favorite network to work on?
Well, Instagram is really my hub for me. And, to be honest, Ricky, I probably was a little late to the game. I was very much on the TV side, working for Golf Channel for 4 years. And then, really kind of focused on that front and was probably a little late as far as focusing my business on and growing, my own personal brand on the social media platform. But, when I finally did, come to a little bit, I really thought that Instagram would probably be my best spot for me to get my message out and to be creative and put some stuff out there. My Instagram's at Travis Fulton Golf, and really, Ricky, we committed I'd say about probably 8-9 months ago, and we're pushing 25,000 followers already, which is really cool. And to have that kind of growth so quickly, and if you look at it, there is so much information out there, right? But I'm all for kind of thinking outside the box, trying to do creative, different types of things. So you'll see some cool formats that we do on there. One of them is called Feel versus Real, which is very popular, where you'll see kind of a split video screen, and on one side it's me demonstrating the feel, and then how that translates into what's really happening. And as we know, feel and real can be totally different in golf. So people have really related to that kind of message, right? Again, it's probably info they perhaps have heard before, but the application and the presentation of it in the order and how we put it in is probably very different than how they've ever seen it. So I think those kinds of platforms, Feel versus Real. We do another one. It's called Making Par. I just posted one from Victoria National playing 18, bringing such a cool hole, to life on playing the hole and how to play it, and really give them 4 specific things within the context of hitting a tee shot, hitting an approach shot, hitting a short game shot, and hitting a putt, to think about that. Obviously can help them in the journey of playing a hole. So we do a lot of different kinds of creative things on Instagram. And then really for me, with 2 little kids, it's hard for me to be really active on the Twitter front from a conversational standpoint. I do as much as I can. But honestly, Instagram and now even YouTube on the long form version of these things has been successful, even more so than my own website. I mean, Instagram is really a crazy animal, and it's a lot of fun.
That's really cool. And to that very point about Instagram, I mean, it's owned by Facebook, but it's growing faster than anything. Facebook's going the opposite direction, quite frankly. And I think that was a smart decision for Facebook to buy Instagram. But, I'm a Twitter junkie. I love Twitter. I love Google Plus, and talk about long form. Google Plus is kind of that. You can kind of say a lot more, and Google being, YouTube, same way Instagram and Facebook. And the fact that you're so active on YouTube, it's cool. And you're so fast to respond on Twitter too. If you're not that active, if you say you're not that active, guess what? You're pretty active from what I can tell. So you respond quite quickly. So I appreciate that as a fellow Twitter user.
Yeah.
Now you do. I mean, and I look at Twitter as kind of an immediate, like, if I'm sitting in a restaurant and I'm having an issue and I tweet at the restaurant, I don't expect them to respond. I expect them to respond before the server comes back to the table. And that's not a bad thing from a consumer perspective, because now the brand has to respond.
Yeah.
Literally last week, I'm standing at an airport. I'm 30 minutes before I board, and I wanted to upgrade my seat. I didn't want to walk 20 feet this way to go to the counter, so I tweeted them, and they respond. And I didn't get the upgrade that I wanted, but it wasn't the point. I only did it as kind of a social experiment to see. I don't have to stand up and walk over there. I can tweet them and get the answer. They know what flight I'm on. They know who I am. They know exactly what's going on. And the fact that they're able to respond faster than me getting up and going and actually talking to someone, quite frankly, is just when I say an experiment, it's proving the fact that I don't need to communicate with them the way that is expected, right? And I tweet you and you respond, and I could have a conversation with you and only see your logo and never know who you are, never know what you do past your Twitter profile. So it's a cool way for us to be in a I mean, we call it social media, and it still is considered that, but it's more than that. It's a new communication format, and it's even to the point now to where I don't even like talking on the phone. Like, text me, tweet me. I don't want to talk to you. So now you teach at several clubs, Pablo Creek in Jacksonville. You have another club in Jacksonville you're at, Victoria National in my home state. And I hate calling it that because I haven't even been back to Indiana since I moved. But, it's still, I'm a Hoosier, even though I graduated from Purdue. So, boy, they're up. But, talk about the clubs, how you work with those clubs. Are you a contractor? Like, what's your partnership? Like, do you have your studios there? Kind of what's that look like from you on an instruction basis at these individual facilities?
Yeah, I split time here in Northeast Florida. I teach at a private club called Pablo Creek, which is a beautiful private place here in Northeast Florida. And I'm there 2 days a week working with their membership and their immediate family and friends, and how that whole private club works. And then the other club I'm at is Jacksonville Golf and Country Club here, which is also private, but is kind of much more active in outreach into bringing in new potential members and those kinds of things. So that's where I shoot the show. The Stripe Show, as part of my contract there at Jack's Golf, is to shoot the show there, really showcase the golf course, and help from an awareness standpoint. But then they also let me bring, my other clientele, in which I spend about 2 days a week there as well. So I split time between those two, and then usually 3 or 4 trips up to Indiana, Victoria National, similar, type of situation where it is a private club, but bringing an awareness to such a amazing property in Southern Indiana, ranked 43rd in the country, the hardest course in the web.com tour. I mean, really a spectacular place that has really, turned its direction to the national membership model. And I think, since doing that, and the things that they're doing, has really made an impact on that type of facility and exposure to so many people across the country now that are national members and come in and really enjoy, what is a top ranked conditioned championship golf course.
So you have a lot of logos on the bottom of your website. Like, I'm talking TrackMan and 18 Birdies and Callaway. Like, you get some big brands listed down there. So talk about those logos a little bit. Are they partners of yours? Are they just brands that you support? Do you wear those logos? Do you play those clubs? And what those logos mean to you as an instructor?
Yeah, well, I've really always, I've kind of split my business into 2 different, I don't want to say directions, but 2 different departments. One, of course, the instruction side, which I've been doing for 20 years, and through the instruction side, partnering up with key technology groups like TrackMan, who's I think probably the top launch monitor in the game, and certainly the standard on the PGA Tour. Swing Catalyst is a terrific another piece of technology that I've done some stuff with from a pressure mapping, force plate standpoint. And, of course, all 3 of the facilities that I'm at, Callaway, I've been with for many years now, and obviously is doing extremely well in the business, very creative in content creation, and obviously some of the best equipment that we've probably ever seen in the game. And then, of course, 18 Birdies with the show, and really partnering up with them from a content creation standpoint. Some of the other ones you see is really the other part of my career, which is as kind of a personality, right? And entertainment. And, I've been fortunate to be able to work with Golf Channel for many years, Golf Digest, PGA Tour Entertainment. I host a show for the PGA Tour now. It's a fantasy golf show that they do. In fact, I host this afternoon. Usually it's Tuesday afternoons, and we do that right here in Ponte Vedra headquarters. So, there's the teaching aspect, there's the TV digital aspect, and it's been fun to kind of, not just be a teacher, but be able to kind of showcase, some other skills and talents that I think I have, and that I enjoy doing. Frankly, I like the balance of it, and I've been fortunate enough to have these key partners, as you mentioned, that you see on my website.
So I don't know if you know Jeff Ritter at all. He's based out of California. Was a buddy of mine when I lived in Arizona. You're both kind of in the same kind of ballpark. Like, you guys got a lot of stuff going on. You're involved in a lot of different brands, and yeah. So I'm gonna kind of relate you guys a little bit there. So Jeff's a good dude.
Yeah, Jeff and I, we know each other very well. Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. He's so funny story about Jeff, real quick. He's been on this show. His wife's been on this show. So that's the first. I've got a lot of these like first, right? And he's the first. He and her are the first, like, husband wife duo to come on the show for. And I'm not going to tell you whose episode was better. I'll let you watch them both to figure it out. But hers was pretty good. I'm just saying.
I bet.
His was actually the first episode I did as a Floridian. So I had no furniture. I'm literally sitting on my patio out front in a beach chair because I had no furniture for the first month that I lived here. So that was a pretty fun evening. So you have a mailing list on your website. Every website's got a mailing list. Email marketing is a big deal. I do a lot of that at Tiburon. How many subscribers do you have, and how often are you emailing your list?
That's a good question. I would say from an email list standpoint, I've got probably 10,000 at this point. But I would say of those, are not my close private lesson clientele. Then I'm certainly communicating with them to some degree, but more on, I would say, on the social media aspect. From a teaching standpoint, I would say my clientele, I do bring in a few new people from time to time. What's really growing for me is on the long distance digital front. That's where I'm probably advertising more of that to them and through social media, from that standpoint. But as far as advertising out from a one-on-one private lesson standpoint, I don't do a whole lot of that. I've been fortunate enough being in the same spot for the last 20 years. I have a really strong base of people that I communicate with, and they book well in advance, and I'll bring a few new people in from time to time. But the long distance aspect through my Coach Now app has really grown, and it's been fun to reach out to other students that can't make it down here, but yet still work with them from a one-on-one standpoint, still give them good information, still get them moving in the right order, and teach them, as literally through your phone.
And that's awesome that you're able to do that. And technology has obviously changed. I mean, you can do a lesson with a guy that lives in Canada as much as you can do a lesson with a guy that lives in Australia. It's very cool to be able to do that in the technology right now. Like, you and I are not in the same place at the same time, and we're having a conversation that's streaming live to YouTube. Like, that's cool, right? Yeah. Now, as an instructor, and unfortunately, this brings the front nine to an end. This is your last question on the front nine, because we have so much to talk about. This is fantastic. Your lessons, your rate is published on your website, and some pros do that, some don't. I've seen lessons as low as $25 an hour, as high as $500 an hour. What is your lesson pricing structure like? How did you decide to charge what you charge? And do you change that and adjust that based on your clientele, or do you just know that that's the rate you charge based on the research that you've done? Kind of what's your model?
Well, I think, for me, when I first started teaching, I charged I was in Arizona, actually, and I charged $50 for a lesson. That's where I started. And when I moved to Florida, our first rate was $70. And as you teach and as you accumulate students and as supply and demand changes and all that, then of course you can start to, kind of bump your rate, you grow within the chart and all those kinds of things. And I think over the years, my rate has been able to kind of incrementally grow. And as I've grown in the other aspect of my business from the TV side, that's helped that as well, right? From a notoriety standpoint. So, it's kind of worked itself into where it is now, which is I charge for a new student $225 for an hour, but then you always have that series of 5 rate, which is, $1,000 at $200 an hour. So that's where I just work from a one-on-one capacity standpoint. I don't do really any schools at this point. I do a fair amount of corporate outings where I'll go and work with groups and corporations and things like that. But when I'm here in Florida or in Indiana, I'm working in that one-on-one capacity, and that's my rate. My online rate works really well. I charge $175 a month, but that's individual too, where they send video and they interact with me, 2 or 3 times a month. So, or 1,500 for the year. A lot of my students will just sign up for the whole year, and then are able to, interact and send me video, on that, 2 or 3 times a month basis. So, those are my rates. They've changed, they've grown, fortunately, over the year, just, through some of the things that I've been able to do. And that's kind of, I guess, where it stands now in teaching, which is really now teaching 3.5, 4 days a week.
That's really cool. And it's cool that you're being able to utilize, I mean, you're obviously more than just an instructor. You've got a lot of stuff going on, like you said, with the entertainment piece, your show, which, by the way, has one of the best names of a show.
Yeah.
Even though you don't show fairways, I'm just saying that's what I call a stripe show. But, I love the fact that you're able to reel all that in. And quite frankly, the rate, based on where I am here in Naples and the experience that I've had with instructors and just seeing the prices that they charge, like $175 kind of seems like the starting point, right? And I've got buddies in teaching Arizona that are $3.25 to guys like, I mean, you mentioned Hank Haney earlier. I can't imagine what he charges, but he's obviously got a little bit of notoriety having taught Tiger. I mean, I don't even know if Haney teaches anymore. I mean, the guy might just I mean, why he doesn't need to, right? But I appreciate all that you do, and it's really fun to follow along with everything that you've got going on, all the different and avenues. And again, I'm going to compare you right to Jeff Ritter, because that dude's got his hand on about 45 different things, and I feel like you do too. And I am the same way. I've got about 45 things moving on, and I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this, and it's about 10 different avenues. So I can totally relate to that and respect the heck out of that. So before I let you go, though, we're only halfway there, because that was just the front nine. That was the business side of the show. As you said, we got to go to the back nine. The back nine is where we have some fun. So you ready for your back nine?
Let's do it. All right.
What's your favorite golf movie? And if you say The Legend of Bagger Vance, this interview is over. I actually like that. When I say that, I like that movie a lot. It's not my favorite, but I like that movie a lot.
Is awfully tough to beat, but I mean, Happy Gilmore is just funny. I mean,
dude, how good is that movie?
I mean, Happy Gilmore is just. I'm gonna give it the nod.
Thank you. Tin Cup's close. Tin Cup's like the serious version of Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, I tend to probably err on the less serious side when it comes to most things.
Why haven't there been a good golf movie though? Like, right? Yeah. Like there's good NASCAR movies, there's good like dramas, there's there's not been a good high quality, like high dollar golf movie. Like
that's true.
Tommy's Honor was good. I don't know if you've seen that. I had the executive producer on this show last season. It was a fantastic movie, and I saw that right before I went to St. Andrews, and it was really cool. And if you haven't seen the movie, and if you've been to the Home of Golf, they filmed none of that in the Home of Golf. They were there in Scotland, but they were not actually at the old course. They recreated everything, and it was pretty cool to see. Yeah. But, it's not a good golf movie in the respect of like a good like blockbuster film. So
that's
Happy Gilmore was. Now, Tiger, let's talk about Tiger real quick. Yeah. So first he came back, won. I mean, bravo. Like that's fantastic. Like a year ago he couldn't walk, right? And then he couldn't hit fairways. And he was putting lights out. Now he can't putt, but he's hitting every fairway. If you could spend an hour with the man, what are you fixing?
Well, I'd probably just put the Scotty Cameron back in his hand, right? I mean, that's kind of that's where I'm tending to lean. We talked about Tiger today on the show, on the PGA Tour Fantasy Show, and he obviously hit the ball good last week, but he made nothing. I mean, he was at the bottom in strokes gained putting. I think the finish at the PGA was important for him. As far as I don't think he needs the win for this comeback to be a success. But I did think he needed to play well in the major. Because he hadn't too much until the Open Championship. He played that great in the Masters, missed the cut at the U.S. Open. Obviously had a little bit of a run there at the Open, and then made a couple blunders coming in. But his performance at the PGA, I thought was really important. The putting doesn't bother me that much. I think when Tiger came back, what would have really bothered me is that if we saw some of the short game things that we were seeing earlier in Phoenix, from a few years ago, and those yips and
I was there when he hit that.
yeah,
He had a chip shot that went about a foot.
yeah, and if the drivers, all over the map, which Tiger's never been a good driver of the ball. I mean, he was decent when he was young, but even late in Butch days and in the Hanks days, like he was never a good driver of the ball. I mean, he hit a long ways, but fairways the bottom of the list, right? So, I think right now it's like I'd like to see him just kind of go back to the basics with the Scotty, reopen that up, and just continue to do what he's doing. It's just a matter of time. I mean, he's going to win. I hope he wins one of these playoffs events. I think it'd be really cool.
Wouldn't that? I mean, and he's won at Boston a lot.
Yeah,
so
he's played Boston well. This is a good golf course for him for sure. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he clipped this one off here this week if obviously get the putter going.
Well, and to the point of him, I said, I go back a year ago, literally a year today. He's standing on the side of the road getting arrested, and he can't walk, and his back hurts. He admitted, literally a year ago, he admitted, I may never play golf again.
Yeah.
But now he's hitting the ball 340 yards off the tee, and he's competing in golf tournaments. He's at the top of the leaderboard. He's making cuts. He's placing. 2 of the 4 majors this year, he almost won. I mean, the Open was close. Yeah. Those couple of bogeys late, that double on that bogey. 3 over on the back 9. But then, at the PGA,
yeah, he's right there.
What do you do when the guy shoots 66 in the final round?
Yeah.
You're not going to compete with that, right? But
he played well enough to win that major for sure.
But he shoots 66 on Saturday and he hits 2 freaking fairways. You talk about him hitting the ball far. He hits a far left, he hits a far right, and he still makes birdie.
Yeah.
And one of the 2 fairways that he hit, he made par. Just the guy's unreal, and it's going to be fun to see what the next 10, 12 months bring for him and the tour.
Yeah, I agree.
So be honest, how far do you hit your driver?
It's funny. I don't hit my driver that far. I'm 6'4". I wish if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would have learned to swing harder at a younger age. I think I fell into the control aspect too soon, and we see in today's game, and certainly training young kids. I mean, you're always getting them to recruit, wind up, crack the whip per se, really maximize speed as they grow. I didn't do that when I was younger, and I think it hurt me a little bit. I hit it probably 290, which is respectable, but
that's pretty good.
For someone my size, you would think I would be hitting it probably 305, 310. I think I kind of fell into the Matt Kuchar, style there, a little too much finesse and control. And I think, in my swing and the way that I move it, I was a decent player, but I didn't maximize the distance aspect. And I think you have to be able to do that at a young age, because as you get older and you try to increase that and intensify it, it's difficult to do.
Now, you've posted about this a couple of times. You've hit a couple of retweets. When are we going to see your version of the Kiki Challenge?
Yeah.
How good is that, by the way? That's so much fun. I like them all.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy doing it and then running into the post is probably my favorite. And, it's funny on Twitter, right? You just never know what people are going to respond to and then what they do respond to. I don't think I've figured out the Twitter mentality quite yet, but there's been some funny ones, hasn't there? There really is. And you know what? I think that there's potential there of that challenge coming to life on my social media channels, maybe perhaps coming to you really soon.
I like it. Good stuff. Do it in a golf cart. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that'd be good.
What is the best golf course you've played and the worst golf course you've played?
The best. Well, I played at college in an NAI school called Lewis and Clark State College. And I made it to the national championships my sophomore year. We played Southern Hills in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they've had 2 U.S. Opens and 1 PGA there. That was pretty cool. That was and they set it up like a U.S. Open. when we were there. So
that's cool.
Yeah, so I would put Southern right there for sure, as at the top of my list. The worst golf course. There's a little golf course here in St. Augustine, just south of here. And the name slips me. When I first moved here 20 years ago, I went out there, and it's not the St. Augustine Country Club. I'll think of it before the show's over with. And it's just terrible. I mean, it's just
terrible.
It's just terrible. I mean, there's, it's really narrow, and then there's fairway bunkers. It's like you don't need fairway bunkers when it's like really narrow, right? And then you got holes like crossing. I mean, you literally need someone out there like directing traffic to get from 3 green to 4T, and then you come back from 8 green. I mean, it's like, good grief. You're looking around, golf balls are flying around. It's just, it's a disaster. I've never been back. Hence why I can't think of the name right now.
So I won't play that one when I come up there to see it.
Google. I turned off my this Google Home that I got for my birthday. As you heard the music earlier.
You were playing top 40 there, so it was fine. Now, who is in your perfect foursome? And I sometimes preface this with alive or dead. I don't care. Who's in tomorrow? You're playing golf. Who's rounding out your foursome?
Well, I think Royal St. Augustine. That's the name of the golf course.
Royal St. Yeah. I love it that you literally just looked that up. Thank you, Google.com.
Yeah, that's it. My foursome. Well, I would say, I mean, you gotta go Ken Griffey Jr. for me. I'm gonna go to my Northwest roots. I mean, Griffey was my idol growing up, and he lives in Orlando, and I've met him a couple times. And
you've met him? That's cool.
Yeah, he's great.
He's not a good golfer, by the way.
No, he can hit it. I mean, he can.
Yes, he can. He hits the ball a long way. I hit balls next to him in Arizona at a property. I was playing. I need to Google it because I can't think of it. And there's 5 people on the golf course. I'm hitting balls by myself. He walks up. He literally goes to the stall next to me, and I'm like, "You got 47 stalls. You're King Griffey. I don't care."
Right.
That's hilarious that you've had the chance to meet him. That's really cool.
Ken Griffey, Eddie Vedder, and just someone that could kind of keep us entertained and singing and the whole bit, right back to the grunge days. But in my last, I think you have to, from a player standpoint, I think I'll probably put Arnie in there. I think the King would be just beyond entertaining, right, and accommodating and the whole bit. I think that would be a crazy foursome right there.
Awesome call. Yeah. 4 majors to choose from. What's your favorite?
Well, growing up, it was the U.S. Open. That was like the one, right? And NBC had it, and the horns, and it was like the greatest golf tournament and spectacle ever. I'd put it near the bottom now, for me, and what's happened there and transpired with the USGA. I think it's unfortunate. So, I think Augusta probably takes it for me. The Masters now, number 1, and then I think the PGA moving earlier in the season will be great for them. But I'd go Augusta. I'd go the British Open. I'd go, PGA and US Open tied for 3rd.
Okay.
I'm mad at the USGA. I've probably been hanging around Hank too long, on his show. I mean, you want to get him going, that's all you got to mention on Sirius XM is the USGA. He's got so many valid points, and I just that's for the second show we come back. We'll just do the whole back nine of the USGA. How's that?
So you mentioned Hank a couple of times, and I've talked to him on Twitter, and I've never invited him on the show, but I'm just saying there may or may not be a season finale coming up here that he might need to come on. So slip him a good word. You've been on the show, so you've just teed him up to have him come on the show to talk a little bit about his career. So
sure.
Now, okay, so we haven't really talked about my obsession with Tiger. I mean, he's staring above me. I drive a red and black car because he wears red on Sunday. I'm not kidding. I do. Be careful how you answer this because we've become quick friends here. But do you think he breaks Jack's record? Why or why not?
I don't think I don't think so. I mean, I think it would be something that no golfer has ever done before, right? In the amount of wins that he would have to take on now, he's 42 years old, right? So I think the odds are stacked against him. And I think like we're seeing just how hard it is for him to get back and win, right? I mean, I think the tour is more competitive. I think it's deeper with the talent these days. I mean, these guys, Brooks Koepka, right, won that tournament. I mean, Tiger perhaps wins that tournament in his heyday just through the intimidation factor where guys are losing 2 or 3 shots just from Tiger being in the hunt. Well, I mean, Brooks went forward, I mean, so it's a new era. I think the odds are against him right now, being 42. I do think he'll win again. I do think he's going to win another major championship, but I think it's a little late for him to break Jack's record.
Okay, I don't like that answer. I respect it.
I hope he does. I mean,
yes or no?
Yeah.
Do you think he can?
Of course he can. I mean, if there's anybody that can, overcome history and what we've seen right in this game, it's going to be Tiger. I mean, Tiger's played the greatest golf that I think has ever been played. Now, is he the greatest golfer of all time? It's hard for me to say because I wasn't there watching Jack. All we can do is Jack's record speaks for itself. So I think from a greatest player of all time, I mean, you have to say Jack is. Now, the greatest golf we've ever seen, I think Tiger's run there in his prime was just incredible. I mean, and will he ever get back to that point? Probably not. But he's getting closer to winning again. And who knows, right? The one confidence takes people a long ways. And when you have the skill set and you have the belief and you have the genes of Tiger Woods, I think that's the next step for him. He needs that win. And now he's confident that confidence, where's that going to take him right now? Where's that going to take him over the next 4 or 5 years? And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he did it. Wouldn't surprise me one bit if he did beat Jack's record.
But a year ago, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, did you think that the guy would ever play again, let alone be in the hunt on Sunday at a major championship? Like that's what and you talk about the field being deep and the field being stronger. It's because of Tiger. They had to get better to beat him. He falls off for 2, 3, 4 years, and then now they're better because they had to get there. And you talk about Brooks Koepka, like he may never win another tournament. I mean, he will. I mean, he's good, right? Yeah. Like, if he never did, I wouldn't be surprised. And if he walked in the door right now, I'd be like, who are you? And I would know who he is, but the idea is that he doesn't have that aura, that excitement that Tiger has. And the biggest thing that Tiger has done since his comeback has started is when the Brooks walks off the 18th hole to go sign his scorecard, Tiger's there. You tell me in Tiger's heyday in 2001, 2002, if Tiger waits around if he's not going to win. He's on his plane leaving on his way to wherever he's going. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for Tiger, that he's showing a little civility and a little, human essence to himself. But
I think it's probably it's a good thing in that this is where he's at in his life. I mean, Tiger's a different person. We're all different at this point in our life than we were, back in our mid-20s. So I think it is a good thing, for Tiger at this point in time. This version of Tiger, I think, certainly more appealing across, to all of the masses. I think there's probably less Tiger haters than there were, 10, 12, 14 years ago because of this version of Tiger. He's more approachable. He's very supportive, I think, of some of these younger players, even just some of the stuff that he's done with Bryson DeChambeau and the impact that he's had on his career. Brooks has spoke to it. Justin Thomas. I mean, these are players. This is what he's created. Was what he's trying to beat players that, in so many ways, he created and he inspired. These guys admired Tiger. They tried to swing like Tiger. They tried to hit it as far as Tiger. They wanted no weaknesses in their game like Tiger. They wanted to be mentally tough like Tiger. They wanted to be strong like Tiger. And that's what you see. I mean, that's what you see in Brooks Koepka. You see this big, strong athlete who can get it out there, but that also has the finesse game. Jason Day's another one who's, admittedly texted all the time with Tiger when he was winning his PGA championship. So these are the guys he's created. Now he's back and he's competing. He's getting closer. But let me tell you something. He's going to need his entire game to win. He's not going to win with his B game. He's going to need to hit the ball reasonably in play. He's going to need to be sharp with his irons, and he's going to need to make putts, because Tiger back in the day could win with a B-plus game for sure. And a lot of that was because of his intimidation. These guys aren't intimidated. I mean, they're ready to go toe to toe. They hit it a country mile. They want Tiger there. They embrace it rather than maybe shying away with it, which arguably could be the biggest difference between Tiger now and what he's up against versus, say, 10, 12 years ago.
Awesome. What a great answer. Fantastic. We could talk about Tiger all day, but
yeah, you could. Yeah.
You have been an awesome conversation tonight. This has been so much fun getting to know more about you and your career and what you're doing. You got a lot of things going on. I'm going to make sure to text Brandon as soon as we're done. I'm not going to let him wait to watch this. That's fantastic that you worked with him. But your final question of your hashtag Wednesday match play presented by Eat Sleep Golf is, what's next? I mean, you got your finger on the pulse of about 45 things, but what's next for Travis Fulton?
All it is just is feeling like you're moving in the right direction. That's all it is. And I think, social media is part of that. My teaching at my 3 clubs is part of that. The growth with 18 birdies and PGA Tour or Golf Channel, whatever, that ever-changing landscape, whatever that becomes. For me, it just feels, it's always, you feel like you're moving in the right order, or you feel like you're moving in the right direction. You're learning from your mistakes, you're getting smarter. And as long as those things are happening, the rest of it kind of takes care of itself.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been fantastic.
Appreciate it.
I actually hope that you and I get the chance to play some golf together, because we're both Floridians, right? Like, you're only a few hour drive. So come down to Naples, or I'll come up and see you. That'd be fantastic.
I got some friends down there. We'll that's not out of the question this winter. I'll make the trip.
Awesome. I mean, the best place to be in the winter is in Naples. I mean, 85, sunny, light wind. We got an LPGA Tour event. We got a PGA Tour event, and then season starts. That's like the preview to our season here, or a couple of PGA and LPGA Tour events. So, again, Travis, thank you so much. This has been awesome getting to know you. I appreciate the follow on Twitter. We'll stay connected and make sure that we tee it up sometime soon. This episode of the hashtag Wednesday Match Play will be available on YouTube. It'll be on iTunes and Google Play via podcast. Anywhere you want to find it, it's going to be easy to connect. It'll be on the Golf Radio Network, an easy place for you to find a lot of good quality golf-related podcasts. As always, on the hashtag Wednesday Match Plays, you have to remember to eat, sleep, golf.